Hello and welcome back to this part 12 of modelling a Mustang in Fusion 360. So in this episode I'm going to be talking about how you create the windows. So first of all we're going to start with the side window and finish on the front windshield or windscreen. So I want to begin by saying sketching the side windows, there are so many different ways you could do this. It depends on kind of how accurate you want to be. So you could just like have straight lines and then fill it the corners, if you know what I mean. But so here, rather than drawing a big arc like I'm doing there, that's actually a small arc, but if I was drawing like lines and then fill it in the edges, that is one way you could do it. But depending on how accurate you want to be, you're probably going to want to use the fit spline tool, which is what I'm using here. And it might take you a couple of tries to get it perfectly right. It did me. I think I think it took one or two to get it right. But first of all, this is a simple bit. You just kind of click exactly where it lines up with the image. What you might find is that because as you can see faintly in the background, there's a grid that I've got snap grid set on, which means although I'm zoomed in this amount, it still kind of wants to naturally snap to certain points. And that's you can easily turn that off. So right at the bottom center of the screen, there's a little toolbar, and the second from the right icon is a grid, and if you click on that, you can turn the grid off. And I tend to keep it on because most of the work I actually do is really helpful for like when I'm doing a lot of straight lines, and you know, unless you're in the sculpt environment, it's probably more helpful to have it on. But potentially here I could have turned it off and I might have been more accurate. But I mean, if you zoom in really far, the grids get smaller, so you can move it by more increments. That's why you see how I've zoomed in here. Because if I'm back here and I want to move that point, it moves very large distances, but the closer you are in, the less it moves. But yeah, so if you want to be a bit more fluid with it, turn the grid off by all means. So yeah, the fit point spline tool is amazing. It's very easy to operate. You just got to click and kind of drag the points. I think any novice would pick it up fairly quickly. It doesn't always behave as you hope it will, but it is fairly easy. Right at the start, I tried using the 3-point arc tool to do it all, which you could do as well, by all means, because all these lines that are almost straight are in fact curves. So you could use the 3-point arc tool, but I thought I'd use the fit point spline because typically it's quicker. Although in this case, like I said earlier, I have more than one go. So there we go. See, I've Control Z, clicked undone to get rid of the last one because it just wasn't behaving as I wanted it to. What I should have done is clicked in more points, so clicked more frequently as I drew the line in the places that mattered, because while you can add points on, there is a point tool in the sketch kind of section there, right at the bottom or lower down at least, it says point, and you can add points onto a line that are manipulatable. Is that a word? Yeah, you can manipulate them basically, so you can add more points, but at the time I wasn't really aware of that, and it's just as quick to just go back and redraw it. So that's what I'm doing here. See, for this section I don't need lots of points because it's a long curve, and that's quite a nice fluid curve. But as we get further down to the more acute curve, it requires a few more points to just help make it function a bit better. So there I am deciding where I'm actually going to do the windscreen, and I don't know why I decided to do it there, because I've actually got to bring it in because I want to line it up with the window. One thing I don't do in this model is actually have the little, you see in the background of that car that's actually through the window of this car, you can see the silver thing that wraps around the window, the kind of the border to it. I didn't actually put one in, and it would have been really easy for me to do it, and it would have improved the model. But just in case you want to know how you do that, so once you create the kind of sketch that I'm doing at the moment, created the window space, if you select the offset tool and then select a distance that looks about right, and then so extruding cut the window inwards and extruding the edge outwards, you would create the same kind of features in the car. But for me, I just did the extrude cut inwards, which we'll get to in a bit. Not very difficult kind of lesson, this one, but I don't know, you can see that things that always happen how you want them, first time round anyway. So there I am. I'm just trying to unkink those lines. I don't want that kind of the curves are very baggy, if you can understand that, because as I've spoken in very early episodes, tension is everything when designing a car. You want the curves to have tension, to look like they're taut, and those, when they're kind of wavy and all over the place, they're very slack. So it's definitely not right if the lines are wavy. And if you aren't happy with kind of the results of your second attempt or your third attempt, just try and try again. That is honestly what learning CAD is about. I was going to say was about, but it still is. There are still tools I don't use or I rarely use that I should definitely use more often. And the only way to get better really is to just try and practice them again and again. Or alternatively, amazing thing about Fusion, the forums online, if you post a question, people are always there to answer it. You get people in the community, you get people who actually work for Fusion answer them. It's a really good place. Like, I've not had to ask them about cars as such, but in other projects I've worked on where I've used kind of parametric tables, if you're aware of what those are, where you can kind of enter a load of functions and it kind of maps your product or whatever you're creating through just a load of numbers. I've had to ask them, ask the forums before how kind of the best way to do it is, and they've been really helpful. So if you do get stuck and it's something that I don't actually mention in the video that you're wanting to find out, just go on to the Fusion website, log in and select forums, and it's great. I think forums is under a link that says learn and support, so that's just me trying to remember what the website looks like, but yeah, really good. So now what I'm doing is I'm creating that little divider that goes down the window on that angle. That's pretty simple. I've just used the straight line tool here. I imagine it probably does have a slight curve to it, but it's not that noticeable. And I can always change it. I can always come back to it. So yeah, just trying to make that look fairly accurate. There we go. And you can tell that that sketch has completely divided it, because when I hovered over the section on the left, it only highlighted the blue bit to the left of what I've just drawn. So here we go. So see, so you can tell it's divided. If when you click that it selected the whole thing, that would mean that the lines that you've just intersected haven't fully intersected. What I'm doing here, doing an extrude up to next tool, so clicking up to next after I've clicked the profiles, of course, and then click the body, and hopefully yours should work something like this. So there we go. I can drag them in and extrude that cut. What might happen is when you model in the sculpt environment and then you click finish form and you take it out of the sculpt environment, you get lines like the one on the side of the car, and depending on how smooth your model is, you might have more lines, and when you have, like, say you had a line that intersected somewhere where I've just drawn that sketch, you'd have to actually have to project the line onto your sketch and then do it as two different sections. If that's not clear, I can definitely do that in the future in another episode. But basically, you can't extrude, like, think of those lines that are on the body of the car as separate bodies, because that's how it kind of operates, which is a bit annoying. Because I've said in other videos, I used to work on SolidWorks. On SolidWorks, you just click extrude up to next, and that'll extrude up to whatever's in front of it. Whereas on this, you have to select a certain body. Yeah. So now I'm doing the windscreen, and here's me kind of hoping that things are going to go just as smoothly as the side windows, but as you'll shortly see, they do not. I think in modelling cars as well, because a lot of my other models had been so unsuccessful before this, when I was modelling cars, I never really bothered to extrude the windscreen in properly. Like, I really kind of half-ass it. So to try and get it right on here was important, because everything up until this point is looking good. I was really pleased with how the car's looking at this stage, and I don't want to then just, do something that completely ruins it. So I quickly created a plane offset from the car to draw the sketch on. You don't have to do that. I guess the reason why you might do that is it's a force of habit. On SolidWorks, I would always do that because it could affect how you kind of modelled. In Fusion, it doesn't, but just old habits die hard. Yeah. So there we go. Using, that's the 3-point arc tool there. So fairly simple. And just roughly, and I say roughly, I mean roughly following the windscreen. So there we go, that's not even at the edge. There we go, that's a bit closer. But as you can see at the top, it doesn't follow it perfectly. It's close, but not perfect. And on the bottom side, which I'm about to do, is even worse. Also, you can see in this image there's like windscreen wipers. That's not something I've included in my model. That wouldn't be hard to do. You do it in a similar way to how I'm doing this kind of windscreen. So you draw the sketch from this perspective, and then you click on the body. But instead of extruding the cut like we did for the side windows, you'd extrude outwards to create new features, and you could create windscreen wipers that led kind of flat against the window. I didn't feel like it was necessary, considering I wasn't modelling any of the interior. It was kind of only the exterior features, so there were a lot of things that I just didn't include. Here, just using the line tool, and I'm putting that dead center because when I mirror the entities I've just drawn across, I need a line to kind of work off of. Just what I'm doing here. So just shift clicking all these, and then mirroring that across. And now that's gone yellow, and that tells you the profile is whole. And so I want to extrude the cut the same way we did with the side windows, and you will see the problem very shortly. Now look at that from the side. It looks terrible, really bad. From the front, it looks passable. It's not perfect, but passable from the front. But the side looks absolutely horrendous. You see how it's kind of bulged out. And the reason why that is because you're projecting from one angle. It might look right from one angle, but if you look at it from another, um, it's the way the model has been shaped in the sculpt environment means it would create that shape. So I'm very annoyed at this, but I will show you how to kind of combat this in the next episode. Anyway, that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.